Morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm coming to you from Regina, which is located on Treaty 4 territory. Mass's work and support reaches lands covered by Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, currently known as the Province of Saskatchewan, comprised of the territories of the Nehiyawak, Anishinabeg, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Métis, and Nakota nations. Welcome to today's community chat. Thanks for joining us. I am Amber Hanover. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the community engagement lead here at Mass. Today, I'm going to be presenting on our new technology microgrant for community museums. I will be going over the guidelines and the application process. Then Dan, our program director, will present on what can I do with Mass's technology microgrant program. Following the presentations, there will be time for discussions and any questions you might have. I'm going to share my screen here and just stop my video. Sorry, just a little technical things. Here we go. The technology microgrant is a new opportunity Mass is offering to Saskatchewan museums. The application deadline is May 31st, and at the end I will post in our chat our links to the guidelines and the application in a PDF format, as well as our online application. These can also be found on our website. The government of Saskatchewan is taking the opportunity to provide funding to the Saskatchewan museum sector by providing $45,000 to be used to assist with technical needs. The Ministry of Parks, Culture, and Sport is working with Mass to ensure that this financial assistance is widely accessible as possible. The program provides grants of up to $1,000 and is available to Saskatchewan museums to acquire and install the equipment needed for them to engage in activities that would contribute to their successes and community well-being. To be eligible for a technology microgrant, the museum would need to be a nonprofit organization or registered charity located in Saskatchewan that is open to the public and meets the definition of museum as laid out in the standards for Saskatchewan museums. And this is just from the standards of Saskatchewan museums. A museum is a nonprofit permanent institution in the service of society and its development open to the public, which acquires, conserves, researches, communicates, and exhibits the tangible and intangible heritage of humanity and its environment for the purposes of study, education, and enjoyment. The microgrant can cover up to $1,000 in expenses for computer or other technical equipment that will enhance the museum's capacity for outreach and core museum functions such as programming and exhibits, including virtual online exhibits and collections management and care. This could include equipment such as computers, laptops, printers, scanners, monitors, wireless internet upgrades, cameras, and the software required for this equipment. It can also cover the installation and preparation of the equipment where museum staff and volunteers do not have the necessary expertise to do so. Museums can also use this funding to leverage other funding sources. Dan, our program director, will be presenting next on some of these examples and more, so you may start thinking about what projects might help your organization. Grants will be awarded to eligible museums on the following basis. The project proposed will help the museum achieve its mandate. The project budget is complete and the expenses are reasonable. And the project proposal outlines the role of the equipment to be acquired in improving its capacity to engage and serve its community. Next, I will be going through the elements of the application. In the project description section, describe the equipment that you intend to purchase and install. How will acquiring this equipment improve your museum's capacity to engage and serve your community? What will it allow you to do that you are currently unable to do? As an example, better manage the collection or to engage with a particular audience. Please provide as many details as possible. Next, you will outline your project's budget, including the total funds requested. Remember that eligible expenses include computer or other technical equipment that will enhance the museum's capacity for outreach or help the museum's function, such as programming and exhibits, and the installation and preparation of that equipment. Refer to the sample budget for an example of how to present that information. In the item column, include an entry for each piece of equipment purchased and the installation setup required. In the units column, indicate the number of pieces to be purchased or the number of units of labor for that installation or setup. The applications are due on May 31st, 2022. You can direct any questions to Dan at programs@saskmuseums.org. I'm now going to pass it over to Dan.
All right. Hello, everyone. Just switch over to my slides here quickly. Okay. Good morning. So the purpose of my little piece of the presentation today is just to give you some ideas of how you might use this grant program to increase your museum's capacity to do all kinds of different things. We'll talk about what those might be. So yeah, I do want to thank again the Ministry of Parks, Culture and Sport for generously funding this program. And bear in mind that these ideas aren't, you can do other things too. They're just a starting point. And if you have other ideas about how you might use technology to improve your museum's capacity, then that's definitely fair game for this, as long as it's within the kind of $1,000 price range. And if you have any questions, if you're not sure if your idea will fit the criteria or anything like that, you can contact me and we'll talk it over. Also, I'm not going to get into like specifics of like what type of equipment, like what brand or that kind of thing today. But if you do have questions about that, again, shoot me a message and I can either research it for you, help you decide what you need, or find someone better equipped than myself to help you figure out what kind of technical specifications you might need for the application you have in mind. Okay, so I've broken it down into a few kind of key categories. So we're going to look at public outreach, how you might use technology to improve your capacity for that. Public access to the technology itself is what I'm going to talk about in this case. Support systems, so ways that that technology might help you do things in your museum that aren't directly involving the public, but will still help your museum do a better job. And maybe a little bit about the kind of what we mean by getting outside technical help for setting up these things. And just a little note that getting a desktop or laptop computer or parts of one, maybe you need a new monitor, or you already have the rest of what you need. That's also eligible expenses, and it could help with the stuff in any of these other categories. So first off, public outreach. So what kinds of public outreach activities or equipment, sorry, might help with your public outreach activities? For example, a webcam or other camera might help with your sort of delivering programs in real time online. A microphone and a headset for online presentations would also be eligible expense under this grant program, and could help improve, again, the kind of sound quality and responsiveness of your online interactions. You can also get projector for use in in-person presentations. Again, that's a kind of another form of real-time program delivery that that technology can assist you with, and also for those microphone and speakers potentially for those in-person presentations would help increase accessibility. Maybe allow you to have larger audiences and still make that accessible even for folks who may have hearing impairments or those sorts of things. You can also use technology to kind of pre-record your programs and then play them back. So again, a camera for doing that recording and playback, microphone for the audio part of that, and then projector and speakers potentially as a way to play that stuff back if it's going to be played back in person. Of course, you can always play them back online as well. Public access. You can use this grant to provide access to technology for your community members. Things like public Wi-Fi access in your museum if you need hardware to do that, and also installation costs for that are something that would be eligible expenses under this program. Or even providing a computer terminal in your museum for public use, because that'll have to be supervised and all that kind of thing. But it can even be useful. It would be useful for public internet access, but it can also be useful without internet for things like allowing people to format and print a resume, for example, just kind of public service computer. Of course, many of you will have access to those kinds of things in your community library as well. But if your hours are different, or if you don't have access to that kind of stuff in your public computer access in your library, for example, then this is another service you might be able to provide. You can also use technology to support basic museum activities. So you could look at a scanner for digitizing documents. A camera would also let you take artifact photos to kind of record what the artifact looks like, which can be attached to an artifact record to help you find it more easily, identify changes in its condition, that kind of thing. And you could even look at things like a label printer for labeling storage shelves or drawers, although not artifacts. It's not exactly a conservation grade way to label artifacts for sure. I might just skip the application and reporting requirements sections because Amber's already covered that. But I do want to reiterate, if you have any questions, please do contact me by email or phone. The contact information is right up there for you. And if I should have the answer, and if I don't have it right away, then I can absolutely get it to you quickly.
Can you briefly go back to the reporting requirements, only because I didn't go through those that
Sure.
specifically?
All right. Yeah. So once you have the equipment, of course, we'll need copies of the receipts sort of to show that the money's been, so we can show that the money's been spent in the way that we said it would be. And then by next spring at the latest, you'll need to let us know what you use the equipment for. So how did your proposed work go? What you told us that you would use the equipment for, was that successful? Were you able to do the things that you set out to do? And did you use the equipment in other ways as well? If you found creative ways, sometimes once we have this stuff, we see new possibilities for ways that we can deliver programs and that kind of thing. And don't forget, you can also use this equipment in projects that you fund from other sources, like the Museum Grant Program from SAS Culture, or the Department of Canadian Heritage Museums Assistant Program grants. So if you have activities that are larger in scope than what you can do with this $1,000, but the equipment that you get through this would assist with that, you can definitely build on this program by applying to other programs to allow you to do things that are larger in scope and more ambitious as well. All right.
I just have another question here. is once the application is in and after the deadline, how soon can they expect an answer?
All right. Well, we can't. I don't have a specific date I can promise you, but I suspect it'll be something like 2 or 3 weeks. So it should be a relatively short turnaround time.
And the other part of that is what happens if we go ahead and buy it anyways, because we really need it.
Well, if you buy it like before that, I guess hang on to the receipts, but just know that there is a chance that your application wouldn't be successful, and that so that you may not be we may not be able to reimburse that. But if you do buy something before the deadline and hang on to the receipts, I'd have to think actually about that and go through some of what the implications of that might be. So I can't give you a firm answer on that, but if you email me, I will have an answer for you as soon as I can. Sorry.
The other thing down, correct me, but I think we talked about with this, because it's a relatively small amount of money, $45,000, we'll give out grants of 1,000 until we don't have any money left. Isn't that how we had talked about it?
Well, I mean, of course, we're going to have to ensure that things are eligible. So we'll be going through each grant individually, and then we may like have suggestions for tweaks to your application and that kind of thing. But yeah, we do anticipate that it won't be a really high bar, and that it won't be a large number of people who aren't successful, let's say.
We have another question here. Is there any incentive to apply early?
Well, I mean, the deadline is the deadline, and we don't have you're not eligible for additional funding or anything like that. But we would appreciate it if you apply early. That gives us additional, I guess, like what we can do is if it's ahead of the deadline, we'll have more time to work with you if we have additional suggestions, or if we need to tweak something to ensure that it's it's all kind of in order and eligible.
And on that, they said they should have said is to be encouraged to apply early. So I think you answered that question. Do keep in mind too, because it is a set amount for the total that Mass is able to give out once the applications are in and they are determined as approved. Once we reach that max amount, that's when we will have to kind of cut that off too. So
are there any further questions about the kinds of projects you might want to do, or the kinds of technology that might be eligible?
I'm sure that if people have questions, they will be calling you, Dan, because you're the guy with the answers.
Well, if I don't have the answers, I can definitely track them down for you.
and I think keep in mind as well, when working with our museum's advisor, if you're working towards SAS collections or a research portal or any of that stuff, what equipment or services you might need to help support that. So this is a great resource for that as well.
Yeah, and just to remind you that, yeah, if you do have questions about like what kind of specs you should be looking for, on, for example, if you are looking at digitizing documents with a scanner, for example, We can, our museum's advisor, Sarah, can definitely help you figure out, what the resolution ought to be, for example, and what other kinds of specs might be important when you're purchasing that equipment.
And we have another question here that would this grant cover videos of museum artifacts for promotional purposes?
It would depend on the expense, exactly. If you are, for example, if you're looking for a camera to create videos with, that's something that would definitely be covered under this grant. But as say a videographer or video editor, that might be a bit of a stretch. But again, send me an email and I will. This is a brand new program for us, and we're still sort of working out exactly what the implications of different things are. So there may be a project or two where I do have to go back to the terms of reference for the grant and have a closer look to see whether or not that would be an eligible expense.
I'm just putting in the chat here some links to the PDF that you can download, as well as the direct application. Again, this can be found on our website. We do have a link directly to all the information right on our homepage.
All right. Well, thanks very much, everybody.
Oh, I've got another question here.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I know the answer to this one, but
Yeah.
do you anticipate this will be an annual program, or is this a one-time program?
This for right now, this is a one-time program. We only have the one-time commitment from the ministry. We do have, I would love to be able to offer this again. But yeah, right now we have no commitment from the ministry to be able to do that.
It would probably help if we were oversubscribed tremendously with way more people applying than we have money to give out. That might prompt.
And those final reports will also help us make a really good case for more programs like this in the future. So if you do use the equipment that you get through this program and have a successful project on the basis of that, please tell us as much about it as you can, and link us to any kind of video or whatever, and any kind of material that you create using the equipment, because that will help us make a case that this kind of program is a good use of funds.
And not to make anything too confusing, but I will ask a question just to clarify. So based on the application, it is based on a project description or the budget for that specific thing. Is the application approval based on each individual institution that applies, or each project that has been?
No, the application will be per institution, so you can't apply for multiple projects from the same organization. We want to spread it around in as many museums as possible to benefit from the program. But that said, like, you can have it doesn't all have to be one tight little package of a project. If you have equipment that might be useful for a bunch of different purposes, then that's fantastic. In fact, it might be even better. So definitely don't feel like you have to have a really single, really well-developed project for this to work. What you need is just some ideas about equipment that falls within this price range, and that you can really use to increase your museum's capacity. So you just have to explain how it'll help you. It doesn't have to be a very specific project design or anything like that.
So,
and then determined on, just on that note, and determining on your institution's budget, again, the $1,000 can go towards the purchase of partial amounts of that equipment. If you do have larger expenses that you're looking towards to help, navigate, the technology, the $1,000 can be used towards that, say, total of, even if it's $5,000 or whatever. But again, that's determinant on your organization, your own internal budget, and what this $1,000 can do to help you. So again, just to reiterate that you don't have to be purchasing equipment that is just that $1,000. If you do have equipment that is over and above, say $2,500, you can just acknowledge that this $1,000 will help towards that purchase.
Yeah, just describe the equipment and the expense on your application, and but yeah, we can only give you $1,000 towards it. So if you do need to be able to make up the balance on your own.
Yeah, so an example of what you were saying, Dan, about a piece of equipment, for example, that could be used for multiple kinds of activities might be a camera that has a good built-in mic and can do both still images and video. And then you could use it to record a person giving a tour or doing a program, but also use it to collect oral histories to better explain your collection and why you have something in your collection that would be part of the collection's documentation. So that to me is a good example of the kind of multitasking tool.
Yeah, for sure. And another idea that just came to mind in our kind of Zoom presence we're in right now, and I know hopefully we're all getting out of it and in person and stuff, but things like a webcam can help with things like community meetings or things like this, where you need to be able to see other people and have online meetings. But also keep in mind that you can use a webcam to record other presentations, live presentations for documentation for either yourself or to share online in the future. So a webcam is another one that has a, we might all think it's just the one scope where we use it to have meetings and things, but you can set it up in a room and record what's happening, even if it's just a gathering. But a lot of times it can be used when you're doing virtual tours or presentations as physical in your space as well. So
I see another question here too, just to clarify, can we purchase multiple items, e.g. scanner, label, or webcam or camera, etc.? Yes, absolutely. As long as we can, like I said, we can only cover $1,000 of that expense, but if there's multiple items that and they fall within that budget, then by all means. But do explain why why the items are important. I mean, you don't necessarily need to explain why you need a cable to connect things together. But if you're ordering like a scanner and a webcam, for example, then please do tell us like what you intend to do with each of those.
And refer to the sample budget that is on the application and guidelines as well in the budget section of the application on the PDF. And it's also posted on JotForm as well. The sample budget is shown there. So that shows multiple items, a computer, a camera, I think, and the cable required with that total. So again, that's showing the multiple items. And even if they're all used for three separate things, you do have, a computer, but you need to have the cable to be able to attach it to a camera you already have. Just be very detailed in what it is and why you need it, but it can serve a purpose that isn't just for, say, that other line item. So look at what your inventory is and then what your needs are on a technology level to kind of meet that. And that's where this opportunity is great, that we can, with support, provide this funding to help organizations in this kind of techie world we're in.
Yeah, and the other thing that people can do is, and it Dan has alluded to it, is contact the Mass staff, whether it's Dan, Amber, or Sarah, if you have an idea for a project, but you're not quite sure what kind of technical needs you might have. Talking to them about it could help to clarify what it is you need. Maybe you need a camera that can do both video and still photography, and they'll remind you if you need a different kind of cable, or if you want to do a program, what kinds of things you want to do. So keep that in mind too, that you can always contact the staff if you have a good idea but aren't quite sure how to go about it.
And keep in mind too that there's other areas where we have been speaking more of like physical equipment, as well as the application or setup of that equipment. There's things to keep in mind on a technology basis, especially in a online world where we're sharing things, but things like accessibility, purchasing a widget or something for a website, for a one-time purchase, things like if you are doing a larger presentation and it is online, you can have funds towards people being online, being able to interpret as well, because those things do cost. And we have the ability to contact those people, and if we are, like, for instance, right now, we set up these community chats for full accessibility, we would have our captions on at the bottom, but we want to make sure those are captioned correctly, not just kind of how Facebook would caption things and you're not sure if it's correct, right? So there's a fee for that. Or if you want a sign language interpreter here, we would have to pay a one-time fee for them to be here as well. So I think on an online format process, and as long as you can determine the need and the tech base that's required for that, that's another option.
Yeah, I mean, basically, like this sort of services end is a little bit fuzzier, I think, in the terms of reference for the grant. So if you do have any questions about whether someone's work would be eligible or not as an expense under this program, then yeah, please just give me a shout and we'll figure it out together.
Great. Well, we will be posting this online, so share with those that were unable to make it this morning. Thanks everyone for joining us. We do hold our bi-weekly community chats connecting all of us from across the province, and you can see all the previously recorded chats on our YouTube. Again, thank you everyone for joining us, and do not hesitate to reach out.